It's time to rate the last of the four colors, yellow. We will start with the luster cards. Archangelia Mikafar. Archangel Michaela is probably the most hype X-Rare in yellow. Making magic cards free during the battle step makes it so yellow can use cards that otherwise wouldn't be feasible. It's good, but I don't think it's good enough to be tier 1. 4 stars. I do think there will be a luster-focused deck that will play Michaela to take advantage of cards like Regain, Burning Force, and Exhaust Nexus to generate huge amounts of value. And while I'm on the subject, I might as well bring up the best luster spirits that the deck will use. Mind Eye Celestial, Twilight Dragon Rider Flavum, and Caladrius. All 4-star cards. Mind Eye Celestial is a cool card that refreshes herself when you play a magic on attack, while Flavum exhausts an opponent's spirit. And Caladrius is low-key the best luster spirit because it's a cheap 2-cost spirit. This will also be played in the 2-cost deck, which I'll talk about later. Flying Arc is the nexus for luster decks, and I will also give it 4 stars. I didn't think much of this card when I first read it, but it's grown on me since. It makes your luster spirits actually have stats on your turn, and essentially makes them floaters on the opponent's turn. I like it. Crafter Fairy Lepre. 4 stars. It's a 1-cost yellow spirit for the luster deck that actually has a decent effect. Chain Angel. 3 stars. Chain Angel's awkward because it kind of conflicts with Michaela for use of the Soul Core. Flavum essentially does the same thing, and it's only a 4-cost spirit. Gleam of Hope. 2 stars. This card is almost really good. 1000 BP is just not impactful enough when all of the yellow spirits have small stats. But I'll admit, using luster to reuse a cheap magic that draws you a card is tempting. I just don't think this card does quite enough to warrant space in the luster deck. For this next portion, we're technically going to talk about 2 different archetypes, the Fabled Beasts and all of the 2-cost related cards. There's a lot of overlap between the two, so it's kind of hard to separate them, especially since they share the same boss monster, God Beast Behemoth. 4 stars. This X-Rare is the top end for the 2-cost aggro deck. It has tremendous stats, and has an ability that helps with the deck's game plan to win the game as quickly as possible. Then you have the other X-Rare for the 2-cost deck, Calamity Beast Chaos Pegasaurus. 3 stars. I do think Behemoth is more important to the deck than Pegasaurus, but I still think some people might play some number of this card. Its level 3 effect is admittedly not as flexible as Behemoth's because you need to have already attacked with your smaller spirits to proc the effect, whereas with Behemoth, you can just attack with it right away. And that's really what's holding this card back from being an absolute staple in the deck. Shame too, I really like the art for this card. Phantom Beast King Lin, 1 star. It's way too expensive, and its first effect conflicts with Behemoth. The only way to justify playing this card is if you play a pure Fabled Beast deck that forgoes Behemoth. And why would you do that to yourself? Freestall. Did you know that this effect can proc on its own destruction? Yeah, I didn't realize that when I made my top 10 yellow video. This card is so good that I think all yellow decks should consider having a sizable 2-cost package just to facilitate this card. Yes, even the luster deck. Put 4 copies of this, Caladrius, and 1 other 2-cost spirit, maybe Penton or something, and call it a day. Even though I don't think there will be any yellow decks at tier 1, I'm giving this card the honorary 5-star treatment just because I think this card is that important to yellow as a whole. It's basically the reason why the 2-cost deck will be any good. Prince Penton. 4 stars. This is a no-brainer. It's obviously a staple in the deck. Penton and Penton Chick, on the other hand, aren't as obvious. I do think you play regular Penton in the deck, so 4 stars to that card. For Penton Chick, I don't think you necessarily play it. 3 stars. Whether or not you have room for the chick is really going to depend on whether you want to focus on the Fabled Beast package or not. That's because the card Flying Turtle really wants you to focus on Fabled Beasts. If you ask me what the best version of the 2-cost deck is, I'd have to go with the one that plays Flying Turtle, 4 stars. It's important that the deck always has a sizable number of cards to play each turn, and the more consistent you can make the turtle's ability, the better. Same goes for the Cat Sith, 4 stars. It's just another card that can get you more cards to fuel your aggressive strategy. Air Avatar, 4 stars. The fact this can revive Freestall makes this so good, and it's a Fabled Beast. Grimoire Fairy, 2 stars. 5,000 BP is not quite big enough to facilitate its level 3 effect. It's just going to die in battle before being refreshed. I think you'll see people experiment with this, but nothing more. All Mirage, 1 star. This is just a worse version of Grimoire Fairy. Spiral Tower, 4 stars. This card might look a little strange to some people, but the point is to just get another symbol on the board, basically for free, to quote-unquote ramp into your behemoth. Its level 2 effect can also allow you to recycle cards like Freestall and Cat Sith. Royal Potion, 4 stars. This card is essentially a secondary win con if you don't see Behemoth for some reason. Because it pairs very nicely with Caladrius, you might also see people experiment with this card in the Luster deck. There are 5 different 2-cost vanilla spirits. I hesitate to give all of them the 1-star treatment, but I'm going to give them all the 1-star treatment. I think there's enough good 2-cost spirits that you don't need to play any vanillas. Heavenblade Dragon Ryut, 4 stars. This is another reason why I think the 2-cost deck will be more inclined to play Flying Turtle. Ryut is an important card for yellow to play against Zigworm Nova. It also has a nice anti-bounce effect that can come up against white. It's just a nice card to have. Sage Beast Iberix, 1 star. It's just a worse version of Michaela. Hippocampo is the only spirit with the Blessed ability. 3 stars. The fact that it's a Fabled Beast means that it'll see some play with Turtle, but I don't think it's a must include in the deck. Phantasmal Paradise, 3 stars. If Blessed Cathedral didn't exist, I do think this would be a must include, but as is, I don't think this is a must include in the 2-cost deck. Soap Bubble Lakeside, 4 stars. Solid card for the 2-cost deck, and is also a nice anti-white card for yellow in general. Drowsy Fumes, 4 stars. 2k BP is significant enough to be a nice battle trick, but more importantly, it's a 2-cost card that you can get off of Cat Sith and Prince Penton. This is the entire reason why this will be played over Angelic Pressure. And 1 star to the vanilla Fabled Beasts. You only play these if you're playing a deck going all in on Fabled Beasts. And now, the miscellaneous cards. Wonderland Alice, 4 stars. Very powerful generic yellow spirit that for some reason protects herself by ramping. This card serves to help fill out the top end of the 2-cost deck alongside Behemoth, and is the reason why Pegasaurus isn't an instant include. Angel Throne, 2 stars. It's just a little too expensive in my opinion, but I do think people will experiment with this. Great Bow Angel, 3 stars. I think you'll see some Luster decks play this card just to get to their important pieces faster. Spear Angel. This card looks like a neat tech card at first glance, until you look at all of the nexuses and realize that most of their level 1 effects proc in the attack step, not the main step. 1 star. Could be good in the future, depending on what future nexuses look like. Arcana Knight Hex, 1 star. Ice Shield and the Hippo aren't enough to warrant playing this card. Do keep an eye on it though. This could become really good if yellow gets more life gain cards in the future. Queen Marigold, 3 stars. I think this card is decent in the Luster deck, but I don't know if it's good enough to be a staple. And the last 2 vanilla spirits get a 1 star. Blessed Cathedral. Similar to Freestall, I'm giving this card the honorary 5-star treatment. I think all yellow decks should play some number of this. It's too good not to play. It ramps and draws. What more could a deck want? Green Field of the Victor. 2 stars. I actually think this card is better than people give it credit for, but yeah, it's just not good enough to see competitive play. Its effects are surprisingly hard to keep active, even for a 2-cost deck. I think it'll see fringe play and nothing more than that. Angelic Pressure, 4 stars. It might not see play in the 2-cost deck due to Drowsy Fumes, but it'll see play in the Luster deck. Speed Round for the burst cards I talked about in a previous video. Puppet Strings, 1 star. Imaginary Gate, 1 star. Ascension 0, 1 star. And Exhaust Nexus, 4 stars. Yellow is in an interesting spot. It has 2 very different decks, both of which I think are good enough to be tier 2. It's just a shame that the things purple and red will be doing are so much better. But who knows, maybe yellow can surprise everyone. If you haven't seen them yet, there are links in the description for the other rating videos I did for the other 3 colors. If you liked this video, click that like button and subscribe to stay updated on all things Battle Spirit Saga. Until next time, laters.